Nova Kooks.
Hello. We need just a few moments of your time.
Let's dive into wetsuits right now.
Clever, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
I really like burgers. And I need a little more float, especially as the years go on.
That guy looks like he needs more float.
Give him some float.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
Welcome everyone, you're listening to Nova Kooks. We are four East Coast surfers that don't take ourselves too seriously when it comes to surfing or other things. Hence our name, the Nova Kooks. In this podcast, you will hear us talk about surfing on the East Coast of Canada and hear some funny surf stories from our inexperience along the way. This podcast is meant to not only take you on our surf journey, but to also explore personal growth, adventure, and the world around us, including pop culture and other topics. Today's episode is a surf episode. We're going to dedicate our discussion today to surfing. While diving a little bit deeper with surf tips for starting out surfing, we're also going to talk about the cost of a wetsuit and what you would need to know when you get your first surfboard. And of course, at the end of our episode today, we will get another awesome question from Charles to finish out our chat. I'm seated with Charles, Josh, and David. To start off the surf episode today, I want to ask you guys something to help get you warmed up.
I have several questions I want you to consider.
As we've mentioned, surfing can be hard, physically and mentally, and sometimes feel like a difficult journey to say the least. I want to know, what is the most difficult thing you've ever done in the way of a physical activity or adventure? And give us a little bit of a story of it. Let's start with Josh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. I would say the 1,000-meter war canoe race is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, to the point that it makes my heart rate speed up and gives me some anxiety just thinking about it.
Sorry to bring it up.
Yeah. So there's that one, which I'm pretty proud to say that I've been in a race like that.
Yeah, you talk about war canoe. I remember you took me out once. That was very difficult. I can't.
Yes.
After I got off of that, I couldn't walk straight. Like I felt like
That's legit.
Yeah, my whole body was just especially like my knees.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Is it cardio hard? Is it muscle burning?
Well, that's the thing. It's like this hybrid. It's both. It's
Wow.
like you need awesome cardio. Not to say I had awesome cardio, but it's cardio and strength at the same time, and then endurance. Like it's
Core
very
strength
cool.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I will mention for whoever ends up listening to this that the World Canoe Championships are going to be in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia this summer. So check it out. It's some of the highest performing athletes you'll see. It's crazy.
Charles, what's the most difficult thing you've done?
I would say the Fundy footpath hike.
Yeah.
So that's a hike that I did with Josh was involved with that there. There was a group of us. And for those that don't know, that's about a 50-kilometer coastal hike along the Bay of Fundy. It starts in St. Martin's and it ends in Alma. We were looking at doing it, I think, in like 3 nights, 4 days all together. You could certainly take your time with it and it'd be a bit less relentless. Yeah, as far as a coastal hike, I mean, that sounds very scenic, but you're along the coast, you're in the forest, and it's really just like one hill after another. So
Yeah,
you're
like hiking up and down cliffs. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
So, you're just going up and down these switchbacks. You finally get up there, it levels off, you have a moment for a breather. And then like one thing about hiking, you think like going up is hard, going down can be just as tough. It's a kind of, it puts a lot of weight on your knees, especially if you're hiking in there with all your gear and your tents and everything. It definitely was taking a toll on my body, and I had like my left knee like up above the kneecap, like there was this pain that kind of set in the second day. So every time I was going down a hill, I had to like really take my time and power through it. And then I think it was the third night there that There was a rainstorm coming the next day, so a lot of the trails were muddy and washed out. So, that was kind of on top of it. And then we got to a crossing, but we had to wait a couple hours for the tide to change in order for us to cross it. So it was really, it was definitely the most physically and I would say also psychologically demanding thing that I've ever done. Similar group of us did Cape Chignecto 2 years before that, and that was really one of the first. So that's a hike at the Cape Chignecto Park in Nova Scotia. That was like the first multi-day hike that any of us had done, and we really, we just kind of loaded up our bags with cans of beans and like had way too much weight, the wrong footwear on, like all the gear, and like after like 3 days, like my feet were just like torn to shreds, and that was like nowhere near as difficult a hike as the footpath there. So yeah, it's always great to set yourself a challenge, but it's always great to prepare and have the right gear for things.
I think that's a good point. Jared was fine, but it destroyed me, and then I guess it was 2 years later, we did the Fundy Footpath, and it was like, it just goes to show how far a little bit of wisdom can go.
And sometimes sometimes you kind of have to wreck yourself sometimes in order to learn those lessons, right?
Yeah. David. Yeah. What's the biggest adventure, the most challenging thing you've done?
One would be sort of the sprint triathlons that I have done, and I'm in no way a triathlete. I'm sort of a weekend warrior, dad bod. I've done maybe 6 triathlons now. And it came out of my love of cycling, and then it kind of morphed into adding in the swimming training, and then the running kind of came along with it. But my first one I did is in Port Hood, Cape Breton, which is an absolute gorgeous part of the world with the beaches and whatnot. It's the summer. There's amazing restaurants there, so I'm gonna have some fish and chips. I'm gonna have a cold glass of water with it too. We do this beautiful triathlon. The swim is gorgeous right off the beach, clear crystal water, beautiful. The bike ride is lovely, but then you get to the third step, which is the run, obviously. So we get out of the water and it's a run. The run out of the beach is sort of straight up this hill. The guy I was doing it with, my cousin who I train with, he is 69 years old, but incredible shape. Mm-hmm. But anyways, we came out of the transition together, just the way it worked out. And he was like this, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, this is gonna be great. We're gonna get a lovely picture of the two of us crossing the finish line together." He was assuming that we were going to stick together on that run. Well, we hit this one hill, and it just was that classic, like, you feel like you're in mud and the other person is just cruising. So he literally left me in the dust. And actually, like, when I look at my time, I didn't do that bad, but it was one of those ones where you just get that hate in your belly because you're in such pain, and you feel like you're going so slow, like the people watching must be like, who is this guy? He's never run before a day in his life. That was probably one of the harder moments. And that's not like a 3-day hike like you guys were talking about. It's only hour and a half tops for a sprint triathlon, but that was hard. When I finished that one, I was really looking forward to a tasty burger. Yeah.
So for me, I ran a marathon once, and I found that to be quite a challenge.
During a little.
Yeah, during that marathon, I mean, I've done half marathons before and after, but I wasn't really going for a time, although when I was training, my time looked like it could have been quite good. During my training time, I ran into some bumps and I broke 2 ribs slipping on ice about 2 months out from it. So that kind of jammed me up for about a week and a half. I made sure that I kept my fitness up because I guess they say, like, if you don't do an activity for like 10 days or 2 weeks or something, you lose your fitness. So I was trying to make sure that I could still have my fitness, but I would like bandage myself up so I could keep going. I was so sore. That was the year before I met you, Dave.
That's right. I remember hearing that.
When you're training for a marathon, the idea is that, 1 day a week you have a long run where you keep inching closer and closer to that 42K mark. And I missed my last 2 long runs like I got to, what was it, kilometer 37?
Wow.
And I decided to just walk for a second. I grabbed like there was a water stop, and I grabbed the water and I just stopped running, stopped that motion and walked, and all the pain set in immediately. And I don't know how I got through those last kilometers. I think they were like, I think I was running like around the 5 minute a kilometer mark, and then I quickly went to like 7 or 8. Like by the end it was, you got to train for that stuff, and I did, but I don't know. I had mac and cheese in the bathtub after, and it was amazing. And I had 2 massive burgers that night. Oh. There's a theme here.
There's a theme.
I'm always impressed by people that can do marathons or like triathlons or any of it.
Well, I had a professor that would do a couple a year, and I remember he ran a marathon. This is when I was doing my master's. He ran a marathon before he taught us a class that day. Yeah.
People are impressive.
Next, please.
This next section, we wanted to have a discussion on what you need to get going with surfing, including what someone may need in Nova Scotia that may be slightly different from other places in the world. So in the ways of equipment, when you're first starting surfing in Nova Scotia, what do you got to make sure you've got, whether you're buying new or renting? What do you think, guys?
I'll chime in to get started. I think I'll just start off like saying, rather than buying, if you're looking at renting, if you're going out to Lawrencetown or Martinique, there's always people there that are renting stuff, and that can provide you with like surf lessons, so they can definitely make some recommendations for you. What I would advise starting out is you're definitely going to want a wetsuit on, even if it's August and the water seems kind of warm. You definitely, if you're going to stay in the water, you definitely want the warmth of the wetsuit, and it's not going to chafe, your body's not going to get chafed on the board. And with boards, I would say for rentals, like the longer the better. We can certainly speak to that in terms of like when you're getting your first board, but also like don't be discouraged by like using a foam board, which is something that I checked out this summer. And they're a lot of fun. They're super buoyant. They're soft. You may look at it and think like, oh, this isn't like as cool as like a fiberglass surfboard and whatnot, but definitely great for starting out.
Yeah, soft tops are great. Yeah, I picked one up this summer too. We had a lot of fun one day I think our friends were renting soft tops, and we had a lot of fun on them.
I've got to agree with Charles there. I'm going to go down the wetsuit path. I think obviously it's something you're going to wear pretty much 99% of the sessions you go on. And the wetsuits that they make now are so comfortable, so warm, so stretchy. I think that's something that I would invest in if it's something you think you're going to get out a few times. And nice pair of boots, because especially as I'm getting a little older, I realize if you're cold and uncomfortable, that can really get in the way of a good time. You're not going to
have as much fun. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can rent boards. There's boards all over the place. But I think I'd probably go in on a nice, comfortable wetsuit if you've got the scratch.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Like that's a good, like if you want to buy something, I think that's what I did. That was the first thing I bought was the wetsuit. And I was like, well, at least now I can go whenever I want. If somebody has an extra board, if I decide to rent or whatever I decide to do. But, I think Charles hit it on the head with the rental. Like, if you're unsure and you feel like the first step is getting all the gear, maybe the first step is just seeing how much you like it. So go out, rent some stuff. That'll make sure you're comfortable, like Dave said, which is a huge piece of it, because sometimes that can be a real deterrent. If you get out there and you're cold and you're like, oh, this isn't for me. Maybe it is. Maybe you just don't have the right gear. So rent, check it out. Try it a few times.
I think most rental places also will offer boots or booties and gloves or mitts. And I definitely think it's worth your first time. It's worth, even in the summer, it's worth making sure you have those too. I'm a really big wimp, and I'll wear my boots and gloves all the way into August sometimes. Just because I want to be comfortable, and I know I'm going to want to stay out there longer. And there's nothing worse than having to put your hands under your armpits while you're waiting for a wave just because you can't think about wading in the water anymore. Like
Something else I'll mention, just with starting out, and if you decide to do a rental, I mean, you can just rent the gear, whether it be from a place at the beach or like one of the surf shops, and it's typically like $50 for the day. That'll get you wetsuit, gloves and boots if needed, and a board. And then I think it's usually like $80 or $90. You can do a lesson, which it typically takes, they'll take a group out for about an hour, and they'll kind of, teach you about how to position yourself on the board, like how to pop up, and then like give you some guidance with trying to catch some waves. And then you have the board for the rest of the day. So whether it be like $50 or $80, that's, for a whole day at the beach, that's a great way to get a taste of it and see if it is for you.
another thing too is I think every single surf rental business that's in Nova Scotia will let you do week rentals too with their boards. They'll give you some boards and wetsuits for the week, and they'll even include soft racks for your car if you have like a rental car, if you're flying in from somewhere else. Something good to know. And that's something to mention too, is I remember the day I bought my board, it barely fit in my car. And I was like, oh yeah, I should probably get roof racks. So I remember the first time I used roof racks was when I bought my longboard, I think, wasn't it? And I picked my longboard up and I had to put the roof racks on for the first time. And I think the guys in the shop, I felt like they were laughing at me a little bit, but whatever. Yeah, get some roof racks. And so, I think you can get some soft racks. If you don't have roof racks on your car already, get some soft racks that are like, I don't know, I think they're only like $60-$70.
They'd be pretty reasonable, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe more at some of the surf shops. You can probably find them at like a mountain equipment co-op or something like that for a bit cheaper.
Yeah. I think, again, I second what Charles said with getting a lesson. Because again, Dave said you want to be comfortable. Charles brought up about the lesson. And I think that sets you up really well to just get out there and be in a position that you can enjoy it.
Have success.
Because you can definitely get beat up by the waves and you can get cold pretty fast. So,
and for most of that first few times, you're doing more paddling and swimming probably than you are quote unquote surfing. So might as well be warm so you can enjoy just being in the ocean and a beautiful day at the beach, and the rest is gravy.
Yeah, I guess the final point I would want to make is just like, it really is accessible to anyone for not that much money, like especially because you can rent and you could surf a reasonable amount for a year, for a summer, and probably still rent, and it, by the end of that, at least you like it, and then it's worth buying the gear. I'm also cheap, so
yeah. Well, I also think you saying cheap. There is like on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace, people are selling like wetsuits, used wetsuits, especially people that like a lot of the people that are surfing every single day, they often want to like be in the latest gear. So there's lots of stuff. Also there are budget options like for surfboards, but also for like roof racks. You can just use a pool noodle and some ratchet straps.
Totally. That's a good point.
Yeah. Another really good thing to remember when you're starting out, I know that we're talking about like what to have, but we're talking about going out and taking lessons. Make sure that you're with people. Like I kind of thought like, oh, whatever, I'm a strong swimmer. Like I'll just make sure you're with people. And it doesn't mean you have to go to the beach with people, but make sure that you're not going into a place that's just alone, because anything can happen. I remember like my first year of surfing, I got a black eye from my leash, just like whipping me. So like I could have gotten taken out just from my leash in a silly move. So you got to make sure you're with people that can just have your back.
That's a great point.
Yeah. For us, it's hard for us to think about, what a beginner would want to hear. But I remember when I went to the shop and I got my first board, I wanted to make sure like that I understood everything. So like I got the board and I talked to the guy. I was like, how do I wax this? And he showed me, he's like, you want this wax as your base coat, and then you want to pay attention to like, the water temperature for these other different coats of wax. And then when I got my leash, I was like, how big is my leash supposed to be? Shorter board, shorter leash, bigger board, bigger leash. You don't want to have a 6-foot leash when you're riding a boat of a longboard, like a 9-footer longboard. You don't want a 6-foot leash. It's dangerous. And also, like, a really good tip too is have a case if you're going to be leaving your car, if you're going to work with your board, or if you're going to leave it on the car at the beach. If you have a case, your wax won't melt off. It won't damage your board. It can, your glass can,
I got a nice coat of surf wax on the top of my car right now. Just
from it melting. Yeah.
It just happens, but
I really do think it's worth having a case. It was like, I think I've said in the podcast, I was working at a school that was right next to the beach, and I would go and leave my board on the car all day. And I wanted to make sure that, I got it has like a foil liner so that like the sun wasn't going to hurt my board too much. And I was able to jump in right away and didn't have to re-wax the entire board. It was good.
Yeah. Just protects your investment.
Yeah.
I'll offer one other tip, especially if you're just starting out or it's your first day out there. Don't feel like, manage your expectations. You're not going to be surfing these like perfect glassy waves. Don't feel bad about playing in the whitewash. So that's basically like when the wave breaks, you get the white water, and that's really going to like push you forward without, really having to paddle much. And what you can do is you can really maximize playing in that in terms of like trying to like pop up and get up on your board. And even some days now, if I go out to the beach and it's a bit like big and wild, I'll just, stay in the whitewash myself and just, try to just improve getting up.
Good point.
Totally. I think we've had some of our funnest days just in the whitewash. Sometimes I remember there was one funny day at Martinique that I don't know if the 4 of us were out, but I know that like it was Charles, Dave, and I, and man, we were having a blast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were being super silly. It was like just so easy in the whitewash.
I think the first time I stood up, I had called it quits on the actual waves and just went to the whitewash. I was like, I'm not getting anywhere today, and that's when I stood up for the first time. So
started figuring it out.
Whitewash is awesome.
Yeah, don't be afraid to behave a little kooky. So I want to ask. I know that Charles and Josh have bought. You started with summer suits, which is
4-3.
4-3. And you both got hoods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever use your hoods?
I use my hood from like mid-May to July, and
right
September-ish to October. I'm a one-season surfer.
Yeah. See, when I started surfing, I just bought the winter wetsuit. I just committed, and
I'm cheap.
Yeah. I just committed, and then I bought a summer suit when it was the summer season.
I guess for those listening, like if you're just getting into it, you're going to get the most use out of a 4-3. Sorry, winter wetsuits for when you're all in and down the road, and you're like, I want to do this year round.
Someday you will, Josh. You'll see. What about you, Charles? Do you ever use your hood now that you have a winter wetsuit?
No. When I got mine, it was it was a fairly affordable suit. I think it was like a 5-4-3, so it was like a little bit warmer than like your standard 4-3. And that was the first suit that I got, and I didn't intend on surfing in the winter because I was new to it, and I didn't know people to go out with. But it was actually when you started surfing, Jared, you got I think when you started it was heading into winter season, so you just got the winter wetsuit, and then I knew like, oh, I'll have someone to go out with, especially in wintertime. Like you definitely don't want to be out there alone. So that's when I invested in the winter wetsuit. But I just grabbed the hood with the other suit thinking like, okay, maybe this will be handy like for November and whatnot, which I think that first year I wore it a little bit then, but I haven't used it since.
I just add, since we're talking about getting into surfing, when we talk about the numbers, like 4-3 just represents a combination of the thicknesses of the suit.
Millimeters.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure like the 4 is the core, and then the 3 is the extremities.
The arms, yeah.
Yeah, so like when Charles said a 5-4-3, that's just another combination of thicknesses. So the thicker it is, the warmer it is.
Yeah.
I think in Nova Scotia, if you're going to surf it, really, personally, I use my winter wetsuit right up till July sometimes. Yeah. maybe like mid-June, I would switch it out. But that's because I have it, but I'm always comfortable in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it starts, there is a point in June-ish where you realize that you're overheating and, oh yeah, this is the hottest thing I own. And
Yeah. I mean, I usually start the season with you guys, and I'm wearing my 4.3.
Something to keep in mind, if we're talking about numbers and we're talking about like the price of all this stuff, I mean, a winter wetsuit is going to be more expensive, and it's almost going to, the price of a winter wetsuit is almost the price of if you buy your first surfboard and summer wetsuit.
How much does a 4.3 wetsuit go for right now if you're starting out like entry level wetsuit, like a Quicksilver?
I just quickly Googled it, and it looks like a 4.3 wetsuit from Quicksilver is right around $364 right now. $364.95.
And how much would one from, what do you call, what type of store is that? Decathlon?
Like a big box, not a big box, but a...
What do you call that sort of store? It's like a discount sports store.
A sporting goods.
Yeah.
I'm gonna date myself. The consumers distributing of sporting goods.
Yeah. But honestly, like that store, I just bought snowshoes from there, and they're awesome. Charles picked up a soft top, and it's I arguably better than the Catch Surf.
Yeah, I think if I was going to start right now, and I was pretty sure that I was going to get into surfing, I think I'd roll into that store, and I would get a wetsuit, and I'd get boots, and I'd get a soft top, and I'd be ready to roll.
Yeah, and when we're talking about prices, we're talking Canadian dollars, by the way. But a decathlon wetsuit is
$120.
Boom.
According to
like,
this.
are you kidding me?
What is is it a 4.3?
4.3 neoprene wetsuit, 100, whatever that means.
Ah,
wow.
Classic 100.
Is that male? Like a male wetsuit?
I quickly Googled it's an extra large, so yeah.
There you go. Wow. Yeah, so wetsuits, like if you wanted to go and get like top of the line name brand, you're going to spend quite a bit of money, and a winter wetsuit is almost double that, isn't it?
I would say you're looking for
a 5.4.
400 plus, on the low end.
I will say the Decathlon suit, I've never heard of the brand. I think we as a group, I know I'm surfing in a Quicksilver
4.3.
Yeah. So, and it's stood up quite well, and they are under warranty for a certain amount of time as well, which there's something to be said for that.
Sure.
I think I have a 4.3 Excel summer wetsuit. And I think the biggest difference with wetsuits too is if you have your summer wetsuits, commonly you can have either like the zipper on the back that has a great big rope kind of attached to it that you can zip it up and then it like Velcros around your neck, or you can have like this thing that pops over your head and then you zip it on the chest, right?
Yes.
I prefer the chest.
Well, that's what I own, but I'll be honest. If you're a human that's short on patience, get the one that zips up the back.
I just think that the zipper, like I would fear that you get water all.
You do? Well, Charles, you have a zipper up the back. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I got the zipper on the back, and yeah, in terms of like getting like your first setup, I'm out in Lawrencetown. You have Cannon Beach, and you have Lawrencetown Surf Co. I went to Cannon Beach when I was first starting, and it was $200. It was a back zip up, and it was the cheapest wetsuit that they had. And that's purely why I went with that. Definitely sometimes a bit more convenient in terms of getting in and out of it, but you definitely get some more water going into it there.
And more potential for the old back of the neck rash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or as you're out there and a wave hits you and it somehow unzips.
Yeah.
When I rented, I have had that happen before.
Collar rash. You got to keep your wetsuits clean. Yeah, if you're not like rinsing them off after like that salt water and sand, it can be like sandpaper on your neck. I remember there was like a lot of really good surf one year. I think we had just had a hurricane and the beaches were closed because of the hurricane, and we were like hiking in. So like we'd put our wetsuits on and then we'd hike in with our boards like it was like half a kilometer to like the good surf spot. And I remember I wasn't washing, there was like 3 days and I wasn't washing my suit because I was like, why am I going to wash it? I'm just going to go out again. It makes sense. It's like, my pants are clean. I'm going to wear them again tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
But I think like, honestly, it felt like sandpaper. I like was raw and I didn't want to stop because I was having so much fun. And I was like, oh, whatever. It's just salt water. It's fine. No, I was raw. It was hard.
And I guess we should clarify, when we say wash, it's not like we mean put it in the tub with soap and water. It just means hose the salt water off of it.
I rinse it with the garden hose.
Yeah, that's what I do as well.
And that'll keep it lasting. Your suit will last a long time if you're taking care of it.
I think also for the discrepancy of summer wetsuit and winter wetsuit, the winter wetsuit, so a summer wetsuit is a 4.3, a winter wetsuit is a 5.4. Commonly, like that's like the most common. Sometimes like Charles has like a variation of that, but so a winter wetsuit is a 5.4 and it has a hood attached to it. And then for boots and gloves in the winter, you want to have like 7-8 millimeter boots?
At least, probably 7 or 8.
You want to keep your toes warm.
In the depths of winter.
Yeah. And we all have a variety of gloves for the winter that we use. I know, Dave, you have actual like 5-finger like proper gloves that you use sometimes. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend those in like November or even like February?
Yeah, probably. I go the 5-finger probably up to November, and then I switch into a full-on mitt.
Mitt, yeah.
The lobster claws are always nice, gives you a little more grip, but I find the full-on mitt, I've noticed any difference in super warm.
That's another thing too. I find personally when I'm wearing my mitts, and that's almost why I'll wear them in the summer as well, is because I feel like you get so much more power on your paddle with the mitt on. Mm-hmm. So, and you can get thin mitts too if you want that help. Especially starting out, might not be a bad idea, actually. I never thought of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A little turbo.
Yeah. Let's talk about, we're talking about beginners and wetsuits. Let's talk about beginner surfboards. And we've all been on our own journey with what type of boards to have. I think Josh has benefited the most from getting to see the error of our ways. I feel like, Charles, you started off really smart with your longboard, having what is it, a 9.6?
Yeah, it's a 9.6, and I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'2". So when I was looking at purchasing my first board, I have a colleague that surfed, and that was his recommendation. Like, the bigger the board, the better. And it was Cannon Beach that I went to. Just total newbie, was looking for their advice, and he gave me some recommendations. Boards that you'll see a lot of in Nova Scotia are Torque surfboards, which are a bit more affordable, and they're made out of this here epoxy that's it's pretty indestructible. So it's really great for the watering conditions here. I was interested in getting a longer board, fiberglass surfboard. So there would have been these Australian water cool surfboards. I don't think they manufacture them anymore.
No, they don't.
But that was, I think that was around $800 or so. So it was a bit more than the Torque longboard at the time. And I think at that time the Torques went up to like 9 feet. So I started with that. And it definitely gave me that stability and buoyancy that really helped me get started.
Well, the Torque longboards are also a little bit more narrow than the water-cooled ones. So I think having a boat to start is definitely good.
Yeah, I have a Torque as well.
Yours is a Torque, yeah.
Yeah, and mine's a little bit different. It's more, well, you've surfed it. It's like yours and Charles have a curve to them or something, and mine is almost like very mild curve or straight.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's narrow. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a really nice board. I enjoy it, and it's entry level for sure. Like, I just looked up a Torque 9-foot board. Mine's 9.6, but they are $725, which is a good price for a board.
It is a good price, and the epoxy boards, they're like super strong and durable. So I have a Torque fun board, which is a 7.6, and that's the one I sort of started on, but I had experience surfing before, and I thought that this would be great. And it was great, and it is great. It's the board I pop in my car the most, to be honest, even still, because it'll fit in the car and it'll ride. For me, I can ride like whitewash with it, but I can also ride like those better days too, bigger waves. But I also got a similar board to Charles, the what is it, the 9.6 water cooled, and it's great, but I will say not as durable. There was one day I hit a rock and heard a bung, and my heart broke because my hot rod red surfboard was no longer going to be all hot rod red.
Right.
It is a good looking board.
Yeah.
One thing I would add, and then Dave, I'd like to hear what you have to say about boards, but we've all three of us at this point, so Charles, myself, and Jared, we've all mentioned that we're surfing 9.6 boards. So Charles said he was 6'2". I'm 5'9" in the morning. Jared, you're what? 6 feet. So like, it doesn't really matter your size. Like everyone, and if you say longboard, like we're all surfing the same board, to the same benefit. I would say, like, I think I have the same positive experience that what Charles would have, and I'm quite a bit shorter than he is.
It's also weight too. Yeah. I know I have a friend that I taught with who lives out in Lawrencetown, and she's a killer surfer, and she surfs every day, and she uses a longboard and effortlessly. And I think her longboard is actually 9, or no, it might be 8 something, but she's quite shorter though. But
yeah, and that's our experience. Like, people listening to the podcast, if you have advice, certainly give it to us, and we'll update our fan base as we go on. But that's the experience we've had and what we've noticed. Dave, what board did you start with? Well, we kind of talked about this in our first episode.
I'd sort of be a cautionary tale on surfboards. So started again. Thought I was Kelly Slater, ready to roll right out of the gates. So got that super thin, more rocker than I cared to admit, and bought that in Costa Rica. Thought I was just going to be, in the barrel, like, going for it, and it worked, but I would not recommend that path. So.
What size was that? Sorry.
That was 6'4", but super thin, like, maybe 2 1/8 inch thick, like really, like this thing did not float. And alluding to my previous stories, I really like burgers, and I need a little more float, especially as the years go on. So anyways,
he needs more float.
I need more float.
That guy looks like he needs more float.
Give him some float. So volume, like I'm a big fan of volume, and I don't think that that's anything new, especially with the, sort of right now popularity in like mid-length surfboards, more rides, more float, less paddle, cheaters, that kind of thing. So I've never purchased a brand new surfboard ever in my life. They've always been used, mostly because I'm cheap, and there's a lot of boards around. And so, living in the North End, Halifax, someone was selling a little bit bigger, but more of a pumpkin seed shaped 6'6" board, but like good volume, epoxy, super light. So noticing the difference between that and that 6'4" I was just like, whoa, like I can paddle, I can get into waves a little sooner, a little more stability. And then I used that for a long time. And then probably around the time that I met you, Jared, and you sort of reignited the love for the surf. A friend of mine was selling an 8-foot board that, I was a little reticent in getting it because it's definitely like a pop-out, mass-produced surfboard. But there's something about this board. It's an 8-foot. It's made by Blue, which is, again, very pedestrian. It just works, and it works. It's sort of the Swiss Army knife. It works in really small Martinique really well, but I can also take it to, backyards when it's quite nice, and it just has the right amount of rocker for all situations, perfect volume, and for some reason, and it's used. I got it for dirt cheap, so when it bounces off a rock, the nice thing, I don't cry. I'm just like, turn it around and keep going, or fill it and go. So that's my go-to right now.
I think we've gone on long enough about wetsuits, surfboards, and what you might need to start. Before we round everything out today, we have our final segment. It's that time again for the always intriguing final question from Charles. Take it away, Charles.
This is Charles.
Okay, the question. If someone was visiting Nova Scotia for the first time, and you could only take them to one place that you felt captured the essence of Nova Scotia, or what you love about it, what place would it be, and why?
Great question. I would take them to Hulls Harbor.
Oh, wow. That's such a great one.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know if I need to say much more about that. Google it.
Google Hulls Harbor. I remember. That's great for kids too.
It's like you go for a drive, go to Hulls Harbor, have some lunch, stand on the dock, smell some fish, see the tide come in, see it go out, see the boats sit on the bottom.
Oh wow, that's such a good one. We used to bring my family from Ontario would come and visit us every summer, and we'd take them to Hulls Harbor. I of course don't eat lobster. I know I'm an East Coast guy, but I would bring Subway. My mother and I.
It's funny. I picked Hulls Harbor, and you say that. I've actually never had lobster in my life.
Wow.
But so Hulls Harbor's famous. It's a lobster pound, and you can eat it right off the boats right there, pretty much. Like they just like grab it, and then you can point which one, and then they'll go take it in the back and cook it, lobster and fries or whatever you want. And they recently just renovated, and now they have this awesome like rooftop restaurant where you can look all around this beautiful place, and it's like this spinning winding road that comes in down into this harbor, and it's right on the Bay of Fundy where the highest tides in the world. So it depends on what time of day you might be there, and it'll look, you'll see these boats sitting beautifully in this nice blue water, or if the tide's out, the boats are just sitting in the mud.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And
awesome. Charles, what about you? What's your answer to your question?
When I was first thinking about your question, I was thinking about the Cape Breton Highland National Parks, because I really love that area, and being from Cape Breton, but also being from Cape Breton, I kind of think of Cape Breton as being separate from Nova Scotia in a weird way. I guess it's a Cape Breton thing. So I was trying to think of something that would be the essence of Nova Scotia, and something that came to mind was if you were in Halifax for a night out and you were at a house party at like one of those old school, flat top Halifax houses, and then you're walking over Citadel Hill later on, heading towards downtown, whether you're going out or you're going to grab some poutine or pizza and maybe on Citadel Hill and just take in the view. I don't know, that seems very Nova Scotia and Halifax for me. I guess a more urban, classic Halifax experience.
I highly recommend going to Willie's Poutine Window on Bloor Street or Pizza Corner in Halifax, and pick yourself up a stuffing poutine. Highly recommend.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Charles, I got to go for it. I'm going to say like in the summer, Ingonish Beach, Cape Smoky, you got the mountains, you've got the Celtic Lodge, you've got the ocean. I think sort of for the reasons you were saying, the Cape Breton Highlands, and I know, Ingonish is right on the doorstep there. When I first saw the Highlands, I never thought that, I had no idea that was part of Nova Scotia. And I think a lot of people, it would blow their minds just to know that is here. And you get you get the beach, you get the ocean, you get the fishing, but also, and now a world-class big gondola hiking. I just think Ingonish And that whole area and the Cape Breton Highlands is a place that I would take someone for sure for world-class everything.
I think if someone, for my answer, I think if someone were to come to Nova Scotia for the first time, like a quintessential experience, which I'm not sure if everybody here has had yet, but I think going whale watching would be something to add to your trip. It's really easy to do. There's a lot of, I think they're actually like off-season lobster fishermen. We'll take you out, and a great place to do it is Digby. You just go down by the docks in Digby, which is in the valley, Nova Scotia. It's on the Bay of Fundy, just at the tip there. So it's incredible. You'll see humpback whales, and it's amazing. It's such an amazing experience, and I feel so glad that I've gotten a chance to do that. Have you guys all had a chance?
I've been to Digby, done the whale watching. It was incredible.
Have you ever whale watched?
I haven't actually.
No.
What's that island down there called?
Briars
Island. That's the place to go whale watching.
Yeah.
I have a friend that her family is from there.
Neat area.
Have you whale watched, Charles?
No, I haven't. It is something that's just another thumbs up for Ingonish there. It's something that's available up there as well.
Yeah. You can do it. But even to go out on a boat, I know there's one person that does it. I know this is a different province, PEI, out of Surrey. He'll take you out, like kind of like whale watching, but he makes this whole experience. He'll sing old fisherman songs and tell old tales, and it's quite the experience. So I'm sure that, especially in the valley, I'm sure you'll find somebody very theatrical to take you out and show you a good experience. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. I want to thank you, the listener, for checking it out, and I hope we gave you lots of really good surf tips and some good ideas for Nova Scotia, for if you were to come visit. And even if you live here and you haven't done whale watching, or you haven't been to Halls Harbor or been to the Highlands, definitely things to check out. I've been your host, Jared Gates.
I've been David Roger.
Still Josh I.
And Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Nova Kooks. Join us next time for more kooky surf moments, beginner surf tips, music and movie talks, eccentric questions from Charles, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram via Condios.